If you're trying to go on a class, meet someone via Zoom link. No. I think they carried one day. I'll read them these finish. The next one. Students. Oh, yes. Okay, let's get started. Hoping the student who needs to sign on is signed on. Um, if not, they'll have to join. Get the notes from where they sent on Thursday. Okay, so how's everybody doing? The sun cool enough for you all? You all already know about that because you all are working in air conditioning, right? Most of you, if not all of you, right? Okay. Okay, so let's go to let's go to page 15. And let's start chapter 4. Okay. So we've already done chapters 1, 2, 3. How banks are set up. With the types of customers and that type of thing. So we're now moving on to types of products, product types. So on your page 15, to the top, you have a chart, right? And on the left-hand side is the business product. And on the other side is the lending, sorry, the personal product, the product for the individual. Okay, so business on the left, on the right is for the individual. And for the most part, we try to we are comparing, we are appropriate, we're comparing the business and the personal, the individual, where those products are similar. Okay, so the first one is the overdraft or revolving line of credit or credit line, and you can see that that's available to both businesses and individuals. And I alluded to the revolving credit line or line of credit, and so we'll talk a little bit about that and say how and how it may differ from the overdraft. Okay, they're very similar, but in their pricing is where they differ. Okay, so someone tell me about the overdraft. How do you think overdraft? I know we talked a little bit about overdraft in one of the previous classes last week, but how describe if I didn't know about what the overdraft was, begin to describe it for me. Someone, anyone, or someone could do one part and someone could do another, an offer.
The revolving credit, which means that it is maintained by, well, overdrafts are granted based on monthly income. That it should be granted based on monthly income, which means that at least once a month it should go back in credit position.
Okay.
So once the funds are provided to the individual and it's used during the month.
Are there funds
Oh, sorry.
provided?
Yeah. What if the overdraft is placed on the account? Whatever the amount is, that the client is approved, but usually it's about 80% of the monthly income.
Okay.
It doesn't go over that threshold. So that it can go back in credit status, even if the account is in overdrawn, over the overdrawn.
Okay. So for your financial institution, the threshold is no more than 80% of the monthly income.
Usually it's that, yeah.
Okay.
Usually it's that amount. They don't provide 100% overdraft, no kind of financing.
Okay.
It's 100%.
Okay. Fine. Now, what type of account would you set up an overdraft on?
Because usually done on a checking account, where
Okay.
there are checks already, where clients would use checks to maintain or pay utility or monthly bill.
Okay.
And so it's facilitated to a fixed with day-to-day or month and expenses on that for that client.
Okay.
In the event that they don't have that available cash, they can use their provide their income, or their income can be provided to as a sort of collateral to assist in obtaining that overdraft facility.
Okay. So it's set up on a checking account, say, as opposed to any other type of account like savings, fixed deposit. Okay. By the nature of it, because you a savings account, by the nature of it, you do not want to overdraw a savings account, or you shouldn't. Okay, although I've seen savings accounts go overdrawn when banks, if there's not even enough funds on the account, but at the end of the month, when the bank charges fees, okay? But technically, what should happen is the bank we should not be overdrawing savings accounts, okay? Checking accounts, or uh, some people call them current accounts. Now, I don't know what they probably gonna fall by the wayside. I don't know if, because I think in the end of 2024, the central bank has indicated that they want to do away with
Yeah.
checks. Okay, so maybe, sorry, 2023 or 2024? 2023. Okay, all right. Well, okay, my understanding was 2024 next year, but okay, if you say it's 2023, okay, okay. So maybe they will allow, so they won't be called checking accounts like a lot of us call them. They probably go back to the name saying current account, right? Or some other account. To allow probably overdrafts and also revolving lines of credit. Okay. Because you'll still be able to use, like, say, probably your debit card in the place of where you write checks. You use a debit card to utilize the overdraft facility. Okay, so with the overdraft account, what happens is no funds are actually advanced to the client. What it does on the checking account or current account, what happens is, let's say, for example, in the case of our institution, 80%. So for ease, let's say the person makes $1,000, their income is $1,000 a month. So 80% of that would be $800, right? Okay, so you would trying to use one of the more common terms, because back in our day we would say you would mark an overdraft limit. That's when it was manual, but you would set up, or you would input on the system, right? That person can go over their zero balance. Okay. So they still call it marking a limit. Okay, alrighty. So when they're marking the limit, okay, the process is you're setting up the overdraft facility on the current account. So whatever terminology is used, what happens is someone else will actually go in and input and say you can go $800 over your $0 balance. So when your account goes down to zero, you can go minus 800.
So usually they mark the limits now because when the clients go and set up their or overdraw their account, the access fees would be generated at the end of the month. So to avoid having the client having to solve access fees because of their account being overdrawn, if the system automatically generates access fees when the account goes down.
So y'all do that for all of your customers who have money, or that is an automatic thing?
So we are checking account. I'm speaking from my previous employer, because that's primarily what they did. They mark the limit and then had an expiration date. So
But what I was trying to get is, so the customer didn't have to put in an application for it. It was just okay, alrighty. So the point I'm getting at is it is nothing, as far as I'm aware, it is nothing that is done automatically across the board. Okay, so you have to apply for the overdraft facility. Okay, now you don't have to necessarily do up to your 80%. You may only need $500. Okay, so let's say, for example, a person making $3,000 $3,000 a month. Okay, but they need only like $1,200 because that's when their rent is due, right? or some other payment is due that doesn't coincide with their pay. Okay, so let's say their rent is due like the 18th of the month, but they get paid on the 28th. Okay, so there's a 10-day discrepancy between. Okay, so there's that gap. Okay, so the payment for their rent is due on the 18th, but they don't get paid until the 28th. So the limit will be marked for $1,500 or $1,200, right? Whatever the rental is that they ask for. And so then they'll be able to pay their rent, whether they do it by debit card or now by check, or whether it's a standing transfer direct from their account to the landlord, right? So and then when their income come in, their 3,000 or whatever it is, it'll take that 1,200, so it goes back to zero, and so then they'll show that they have actually $1,800 available as opposed to $3,000, because it's taking the $1,200 from the 3,000 that they get in salary, so it takes it up to zero, and then so the difference you have available, that client has available, would be $1,800 out of their paycheck. Okay, and that's how it's done automatically. Now what some banks may do is that some banks, here's a sign sheet. Okay, what some banks may do is they may because some customers like if the money comes in early, some of the customers may take a total $3,000 off. Okay, so what the banks may do is to avoid that, they may put like a 1-day kind of delay. So if the money is supposed to come on the 28th, but it comes like on the 27th, well, not really a delay, it's like one day ahead. Okay, so they're like, you won't be able to get that money if it comes in on the 27th. You see, so they'll adjust the system internally so the client can't get that money if it comes in early. Okay, I worked for a financial institution where we had these what they call loan service accounts, which were savings accounts, and the people's money came in for their loan payments, for their mortgage payments, or whatever it is. And so some of them, they would come in early, right, and take the money off before the system generates that evening. You see, before the system updates that night, so they'll come during the day, take the money off. So we had to adjust it so that they can't have the money as soon as it comes in. You see, so for overdraft, well, for most, yes, there's something what they call a facility fee or a commitment fee. Okay, overdrafts are good for 1 year. Yeah, so they're reviewed or renewed every year annually. So this is one way the bank makes more money from the overdraft. Okay, so in addition into, see, when the client goes overdrawn, okay, you go there now, what you call debit, right, in the red, okay, there's an interest fee that is charged. Okay, as soon as you go below zero, right, whatever amount below zero, the customer is charged on that balance, that daily balance, until it goes back into credit. Okay, so the bank gets interest income off the overdraft, plus they get facility fees, and for just about every loan or credit facility, there is a facility fee or commitment fee or loan fee, whatever your bank calls it. Okay, the overdraft is no different. The thing with the overdraft is that it's a 12-month lifespan, and it's renewed or reviewed annually. Okay, now what you would have to do is, if you want it renewed, you'd have to, normally the bank would say, let them know a certain period of time ahead of time, so like a month or 3 months ahead of time, and so that you could get the wheels in motion, so they don't actually cancel it, because otherwise it will fall away after at the end of 12 months. Now, if you are business overdrafts tend to be just renewed automatically. Or if they know that, let me leave it at that, because I was gonna say, except the trading house, because the trading house is the person's name, but it's still a business. But when we talk about businesses, we're talking about companies, corporations, we're talking about partnerships, we're talking about sole proprietorships, all those are businesses. Okay, so even if I had a business and I was Glenn Nordich trading in sexy shoes, that's a business account. But I may also have an account, Glenn Nordich, which is my personal account, apart from my business. Okay, so that's the individual account or the personal account. Okay, so those are two different things. Chances are my trading house account, my business account, will probably be renewed automatically, particularly if I'm a customer of theirs and they know I always use that for my business trade. Okay, now in the personal, I may just need it, for temporarily. So unless I give them notice that I'm going to need it for next year or another year or another 6 months or whatever it is, then chances are it will just, once it expires, I have to then put in another application, right? By having it renewed or reviewed, you avoid some of the detail into having it actually putting a new application would not. So some financial institutions will have a form for renewing an overdraft for an individual and also for business, which will be less detailed than something where there is a brand new overdraft facility. So some of the information will be not as detailed or demanding as if it was a renewal. Okay, particularly if the overdraft has been operating quite well, you may find that without much to do, the bank may just renew it. Okay, you may call in, and now they may require you to put it in writing, whether it's by email or physical letter, saying I wish my overdraft to be renewed, and then it'll be renewed on the strength of that letter. Okay, again, that depends on the relationship. Well, one, it depends on if the financial institution does that, and two, it'll also depend on the relationship with the client. Okay, whether or not that happens. Okay, so the bank gets interest income from anything when it goes overdrawn. It also gets fees on annual basis. Okay, and that's for the business overdraft as well as the individual or personal overdraft. Okay, so that's where it says it's convenient because you have this overdraft facility. It's for 12 months, so you ain't got to keep calling the bank, say, listen, I could be overdrawn. Could you honor a check for me? So in the past, you used to have to call saying, listen, man, I go, I need a little extra $100, I can go overdrawn. So it avoids that. So you see, so you have it set up. It's like what they say, one of those commercials, set it and forget it. So it's almost, although you can't really forget it, but you forget it until a certain time. Okay, so it's convenient, it's flexible. Okay, gives you flexibility. So you can make whatever payments you need to make until your income is able to cover the overdraft. Interest based on usage. It's based on how much the overdraft you use. If you don't use it, you're not charged any interest because it didn't go withdrawn. Okay. There's something else I want you to add. You have enough space there. Okay. Revolving access to funds. So put that in that blank space, and you can actually do that for the business and the personal. Revolving access to funds. You see that?
Yeah,
Okay. Okay, so revolving access to funds, which is similar to the credit card, because the credit card is like a revolving credit. Okay, so if you take it up to the limit, but then you take it back down, you have that it's a revolving credit. Okay. Now you may ask, what's the difference between an overdraft and a credit line or revolving credit line? The difference is the fee structure. Okay, generally speaking, the overdraft is not normally a smaller amount. Okay, a credit line is normally for large amounts. So that's one of the first differences. So in a business, the bank may allow you say up to $5,000-$10,000 on a business for an overdraft. Okay, but let's say that you need it because you're importing some goods and that sort of stuff. So you may want an overdraft of about $50,000. Okay, so chances are they will set up a credit line for you. And again, that's also set up on a current account or checking account. Now this is, sorry, go ahead.
I just want to say, by the definition, in most cases, the credit lines have a slightly lower interest rate.
Should have a
Slightly lower interest rate.
not necessarily. No. Okay. On the contrary, that's where the bank will get you. Okay, on a revolving credit. Because what they'll do is, and even if they do give you a lower interest rate on which you go overdrawn, okay, there's an interest rate charge on what you do not use. Okay, so let's say you have the 50,000. Let's say you have the $50,000 overdraft. Okay, but let's set it up this way: a $50,000 overdraft, regular overdraft, and a $50,000 credit line. Okay, in terms of interest rates, the $50,000 simple overdraft may attract, say, a 13% interest rate. Okay, the revolving line of credit may track 12. So on the face of it, you think you're getting a better deal, right? No, what they do is they'll charge you, 2.5% or 3% or whatever it is on the amount of that overdraft that you do not use. So if you use 10,000, okay, if you use 10,000 of that overdraft, you get 12% revolving credit. You get 12% on the 10,000 you use. On the 40,000 that you don't use, they charge you the 2.5 or whatever percent it is. So it really, in some cases, they may end up making more.
That's because it's available.
Well, because of the type of facility. You see, it's whereas the overdraft is there in case of need, quote unquote. Okay, in case I need it. Okay, that's the whole mentality behind. Okay, the revolving line of credit is geared more towards the business.
You probably use it more.
Right,
Yeah.
and so the intention is for you to use it. Okay, and if you tell me you need a $50,000 revolving credit, you better be using it. Okay, so if I'm reviewing that with that client, I'll say to the client, listen, on average, you've used $35,000 of this $50,000. So at the end of the year, or coming toward the end of the year, when it's time for me to review this account, right? So I'll tell them the highest you ever went was, or your average is 35,000, right? So why don't you get a lower limit at 40,000? Okay. This is the revolving line of credit. Okay, so that'll save them some fees. Okay. Now the businessman may say, come to you and say, well, I had anticipated an increase in business in this past year, which did not happen, but I anticipate that again this year. So I want to leave the 50,000. So you have that kind of conversation. Okay, so now some lenders will, what they'll do is they'll just ask for your financials, see if you're still viable, and then renew the whole 50,000, as opposed to having the conversation with you and saying, well, from, you know, I'm looking here and you're not really fully utilizing this. You see? So as bankers, that's what we, you know, well, as financial institution employees, right? As workers in the financial services industry, those also involved in lending should be looking at those things to assist the client and helping him or her or them develop their business. Okay. Remember in one of the classes last week, I talked about farmer A and farmer B. Okay. Farmer A was just keep milking his cows, and milk them in the ground till they die. Farmer B was nurturing his cows, and they in turn was able to reproduce and give him more cows. And as the older cows, as the mature cows got older and could not produce as much or not produce, he was then able to sell them or butcher them and sell them for meat. Okay. Whereas farmer A, he worked them to death, right? And then he had to pay someone to come and collect the carcasses and dump these rotting things somewhere. You see, so it's your approach as a financial institution and as a lender. Even if your financial institution does not take that approach, but you take that with your individual clients, you will find that there'll be some loyalty, and that person will then be putting your name on social. Well, y'all need to go and see so and so at such and such and such a bank. That she or he, blah 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 blah. Okay, so a lot of those quotas that you have to meet for your different loan silos, whether it's overdrafts, mortgages, loans, personal loans, credit cards, whatever it is, you will find that you wouldn't have to go out and hit the payment, so to speak, as hard. You'll find a business coming to you rather than you having to go to the business. You see? Yes, you see? I've had instances where clients came to me and I said, no, we, you know, and they said, so-and-so is offering us this. And so I look through the contract, I look at the commitment down, blah, blah. I said, you're better off going with them. Right. So I needed that to help me meet my quota. Right. And it didn't happen right away. What they did was, in fact, there were two teachers, but the husband, it was a husband and wife. The husband was a lay minister in his church and well respected in his church. So when people came to him, young couples and whatnot, right? Because I think he taught a Sunday school class, so of young adults, and so he told them his experience. I found them coming to me. You see, so I may have lost his business, which was he and his wife built a house like in Westridge. Okay, so I got to use that $200,000 to $300,000. That would save me a lot of work, right? But instead, I probably got two or three $80,000 to $100,000. So I may have to work 3 times as hard, but I still got it, and that's business I didn't have to go and drum up. Okay, so so you have to build up that rapport with your client. Okay, so it's not all just book knowledge here. It's relationship building so that you can be successful, so that you can position yourself to be a valuable asset to your organization, not just on paper, but in practice. Okay, and you get that name recognition out there. Okay, so so the overdraft and the revolving line of credit or credit line, they're very similar in convenience, flexibility, interest based on usage. They're revolving access to funds. The difference between the two again is that the revolving credit line is normally higher and normally geared towards businesses, and then you charge interest on the amounts that you don't use, of the facility that you don't use. So those are, excuse me, those are three main differences. Okay. Then we move to the credit card. There's a corporate credit card and the personal credit card. Credit cards offer short-term financing, interest-free if paid in full by due date. They offer you a measure of security. They convenient and easy expense reconciliation. And we see those are features and benefits in both, whether it's a corporate card or your personal or individual. Okay. So why is a credit card considered short-term financing? Anyone will have a stab on that? Why is it short-term financing? Okay. Now think also in terms of personal loans, mortgages, overdrafts. You can terminate it basically anytime, the bank can terminate it anytime,
Yeah,
right? The client.
And by interest rate, you could mitigate, paying a lot of the interest to quick you pay that.
Okay, so it's short-term financing. Because again, it's based on that revolving, I think it was mentioned, it's based on that revolving, where you pay it back, or a portion of it, within the month, because there's an expectation that you pay at least a minimum percentage of it. Most banks it's 3%. At one point, decades ago, it used to be 10%. Then it moved down to about 5%. There may be one or two banks who still require 5%, but most banks now it's at 3%. Okay. Now remember we talked about in one of the early, I think it was the first class was when you were here, when we talked about the banks kind of forcing people to go over their debt service limit, right? And we're saying that there's only one way that you can and remember I was saying regarding the credit bureau that so many people are so heavily leveraged, so much in debt, okay, that there isn't a very large borrowing pool. There aren't a large number of people out there who you can come into call into the bank and lend them money because they're so highly leveraged, or another word for it is they're such high in debt. They have such high debt. Okay. And the only way you can increase your market in the short term is either increasing the debt service ratio threshold. So, central bank made the exception going up to 50%. That's kind of like the norm now. Okay. But just about everybody is going at 50%. We can talk a little bit about that because there's a danger in that, because most of that is supposed to be for housing. Most of that 45-50% is supposed to be for housing. Only a small portion of that is supposed to be for consumer debt. But we use just about all of that in consumer debt. And that is why some folks will not be able to ever own real estate, vacant land, or a piece of property that has a structure on it, because we've used just about all of the amount of their income allocated for housing. We've included as part of their consumer debt ratios. And we can look at that. I think that's like a chapter 7 on their most. We start looking at debt service ratios. So either you increase that percentage threshold, you lengthen the term, right? And you also increase the amount they could borrow. Okay. And then this is one area in which they did it by saying, okay, if I use 10% for them to pay back on the credit card, then they can qualify for this consumer loan, right? And they found even 10, so even 5 was strenuous, so then they moved it to 3. Okay, so I think without really knowing the reasoning that the financial institutions got together and do it, and this is globally, okay, I suspect that it has to do with the pressure of getting people to qualify for more credit. Okay, why, financial institutions are doing some of the things that we're doing. Okay, so we're lowering the amount that you need to pay back on your credit card, the percentage on that. We are extending the term on consumer loans, even on mortgages. Mortgages used to be 15, 20 years, then they went to 25. Now, a lot of them are 30-year mortgages. So you have the average person getting married at age 25, right? That means they're locked in until the age 55. Okay. And that basically coincides with their retirement if they work in the government. Okay, so it means bam, you retire, bam, your mortgage paid off, and you only now got to live off your retirement, your pension. Okay, whereas there should have been a few years, right? Even if it's just 5 years between your retirement and paying off your mortgage. Okay, so sometimes we may be and this is a very tight balancing act for us because we're torn between meeting our quotas and doing what is right for the customers. Okay, and ultimately what is right for our country. Okay, because if we have people so highly leveraged in debt, the economy cannot expand because those people now do not have that freedom to in their income to then begin developing businesses. Okay, one of the good things in the Bahamas though is that you will find that a lot of us, we do things on the side. Okay, so whether it's like every afternoon, every morning you go by that person who well, this is when women used to wear stockings a lot. There's one lady, she sold stockings, so she made tons of money of the women coming to her, regularly to buy stockings in the morning. Either they forgot, or they got snagged, or they buying their week supply or their month supply, right? Or a little bag of chips or whatever it is, right? On the side. Then there were people who had their other talents. Some used to bake, so they bake cakes on the side. So when they go on the weekends in particular, or the evenings, right? So staff used to let other people know. So then they began to develop a side business. And so if and when it got kind of large, then they would begin transitioning from working from the bank and then going into their say selling their cakes, or some people sell lunches on Saturdays, right? And because the food is so good, they do little grill outs or whatever it is, and they figure, hey, let me just do this full time. And so it may be slow in the first going on because that's how businesses develop. But then over time, it mushrooms, and then they realize one is more satisfying to them because they, particularly for someone who loves cooking, right? And then it's your own business, okay? And you ain't got to deal with some of the people who you're dealing with, in the office. Some of them who don't even want to say good morning or morning, much less good morning, right? So it's but we have to think about those things, and also even beyond that, freeing ourselves to probably say go into farming, developing fishing, doing like tours and whatnot. Okay, there's a gentleman who's in one of the financial institutions. He left the bank because he used to like boating, and he developed doing his little boating excursions, and he says he loves it. He said, he's making lots of money. He has the financial freedom, and he's fairly young, so, so fortunately for him, I don't know whether or not he had the boat before he, was in that particular bank, but that was something that he bought while he was working at the financial institution and doing it for more recreation. And he found out that he can make money by fishing and taking tourists out on tours, in particular tourists, although there's some natives who we take out. Okay. So that's the only really way the economy is going to to benefit. Okay. So you in your own personal life need to make up in your mind whether or not you can continue working for the financial institution that you're currently at, or some other financial institution, or whether you want to become an entrepreneur. I mean, this is a class on banking operations, but I've been around long enough. I believe that if you cannot apply this paper to your current life and also your life outside the bank, then to me, you're wasting your time coming to class. Okay. Because if you only just doing it to say, okay, well, the bank say if I get this, they'll give me an extra $10 a month or whatever it is. You have to look at setting yourself apart to be the best in your field. Okay. So so you may be doing this certificate program now, but have the conversation with yourself and probably have the conversation with someone at the institute, right? Miguel or this Ms. Bodie or one of them on some of the options, Ms. Dean, on some of the options open to you. So if you have a leaning more towards accounts, because we now see we changed our name years ago from the Institute of Bankers to Bahamas Financial Services, and that's because we become more inclusive. So the insurance company, this association of the insurance insurance association of Bahamas, the Bahamas accounting organization, they affiliated with us, compliance officers, right? So credit unions, we have just expanded where whatever the institution is in the financial services industry, right? Real estate, even in real estate, in terms of real estate sales and real estate management, right? So whatever you feel your strength is, think of the next. Okay, so if it's accounting, so you talk to somebody about probably going into accounting. If you feel strong in compliance, okay. If you feel that you want to stay in commercial banking, then you probably look at doing the chartered banker. Eventually, you pass me to the chartered banker from UK, right? What else? If it's accounting, I would say think also forensic accounting and do a bit of compliance, because the strength would be not just as an accountant, but being able to do forensic accounting. You want to stand out. You want to be better than just a normal accountant. Okay, compliance, like I said, Baco is affiliated with us. You could have a conversation with some of their key players, their president or whoever their representatives are, and chart your course. Okay, and whatever it is that you do, be able to use it as something that as a skill. Okay, so one of the things I did 10 or so years ago was I realized that I like whether it was my administrative assistant or people who were working along with me or underneath me or above, I like to share my knowledge of what I learned in the bank. Okay, and so I decided, hey, it would be a good fit for me as a side income to lecture institute and wherever else. Okay. So I got, you know, set up here and, you know, and I got invites, you know, otherwise to do engagements elsewhere, right? So you want to set yourself up so that, so for example, if you choose to go in accounting, you may end up with a firm, okay? But then there's always, you can go on your own if necessary. And particularly with VAT, having to be signed off by a certified accountant, okay? There are, you know, it is, the government has almost made it mandatory, well, has made it mandatory for, I should say, the government has opened opportunities for accountants. Okay. So, you know, and then of course too, you could partner with law firms. Okay. So if they have a case coming up and they don't understand, you know, with the, how, you know, banks calculate this or whatever it is, you can set yourself up and say, hey, let me help you sort out how the interest is calculated on the account. So when you go to court, and then they may call you in to explain it to the court, for which that law firm will pay for your services. So there's a lot of things. So whatever you do, think in terms of excelling in what you do, being a specialist in what you do, right? And so even if in your financial institution, there's a block, you're still valuable to some other financial institution until you get to where you want to be. Unless, it's, of course, you want to remain in the financial services industry for your life. Some people do it, and they set up businesses and have people who they trust to run those businesses for them. You see, so okay, so the door is wide open. That was free, by the way. I'm not charging you for that. Okay? But like I said, in my course, I try to relate to your personal life. Well, first of all, to what you do on a job, because you must be able to connect those dots. If you're not connecting the dots, then learning this paperwork, okay, so like some of this stuff in here, I will not cover because it's not relevant to you. Okay, now the majority of you in here were investment bankers. Then you would see that 70% of the course would have been on module 2. Okay, but the majority of you are in local commercial banking. So I concentrate on credit. Okay, what is applicable to you? And mind you, module 2 is a shorter module in any event, right? And the main thrust, it probably used to be like 60-40. Okay, but I kind of flipped that to 70-30 because I felt that's where the emphasis ought to be, and I didn't get any pushback from the institute. Okay, now they say we want to do something differently, then okay, I'm their humble servant, so I will apply. Right. So okay. Those who pay, they play. Or they call the shots, right? So I hope at the end of this that you not only pass the course, okay, but that you can benefit from it on your job professionally and personally at the end of the day. Okay. So corporate credit cards. Well, I came out from short-term financing. Wow, model. Okay, interest free paid in full if paid in full by the due date. How does that work? Anybody knows how that works? Want to take a shot at that? Okay, that's the simplest, but you have to know when your the statement drop date is. Okay, so on the credit card statement, it has the statement date. Okay, so before that statement drops is when it has to be paid in full. You see? No, you won't be charged any interest. You get basically free credit. Okay, now this here is saying paid in full by due date, which isn't totally correct. Okay, and I never corrected that. This is back in 2017. But it's that statement when statement actually drops. Okay, so it is a statement because you can have a due date that can be different from your statement. Okay, so if you look on your if you don't have a credit card or have your credit card bill handy, look at it when you have it handy. Another bill you can look at is also your BTC bill. You see a statement date and you see a due date. Okay, now sometimes the statement date may be a couple days prior to what your due date. So your due date may be like say the 28th monthly, but the statement may fall like on the 22nd. Okay, like a few days prior. So that 22nd is when you want to pay it in full before that date. Okay, you want to pay.
Interesting, because now that I think about it, the bank may deliberately have the statement date a few days before the insured and just tag along, so you want to pay. You see where you're going?
So
you want to do that, you want like to pay some interest to this statement anyway.
Yeah, well, you see the statement date, the statement drop date. There has to be a difference between the date the statement drops and your due date. You can't have the statement drop today and your payment due the same day or the next day. Okay, there has to be some lead days. Okay.
I think what he's alluding to is that the interest should not be affected by the statement date, but by the due date.
Right,
But
they charge it based on.
The late fee payment is determined by your due date. So
when you pay, see the bank making it from the interest, right?
Yes.
So the interest getting tied along 5, 6, 7 years earlier before you have to pay it.
Yes.
People tend to pay it at the due date.
But then how many of us pay our credit cards in full?
I mean, you still get interest, but I mean,
You see?
you-
So
As much.
many of us, if not most people, pay that minimum payment on amount, add a little bit more than that. But if a lot of us, we have these running balances, right? And so one wealth manager, but there's some different thoughts. Some people say don't have credit cards, just use debit cards. And some say, just keep your credit cards running, because at the end of the day, if ain't no security attached to it, when you're dead, it'll be difficult for them coming after you, right? Just make sure your mortgage paid, because your house is tied to that. Your car loan paid because your car tied to that, right? So after those, and you have those in company names, right? So they can't come after those assets, right? So when they come to your estate, it's difficult to claim the estate. To me, that's crooked. Okay. But the best wealth management advice is, if you don't have to have credit cards, use your debit cards. Although I'm understanding that credit cards in one sense are safer in protecting your own money rather than using your own money, because your debit card is attached to your money. If something happened to someone hacks into your account and they charge, and you have to wait forever to get your money back. Whereas if you tell the insurance, the credit card company, oh, I didn't charge that, it's almost immediate. Yeah. Okay. So so in the past, I may have said, I go along with the people who say just use a debit card as opposed to credit card, but I think you need the credit card, and my personal experience with credit card and the debit card is, yes, use the credit card. Okay, and we're gonna come to a good reason. To the bottom, let's go straight to that. Easy expense reconciliation. Okay, because you can track your expenses. Okay, so on a debit card, chances are you're doing cash withdrawals or whatever it is. But on the credit card, it's to me it's easier to retrieve. You go to the credit card company, ask for back statement. You're liable to get it quicker than if you were to go to the bank, or the bank has come to people come to us and ask for statements, and then we charge them a fee for having to go dig up for these back statements, right?
You have protection, like, you need to put credit cards in the. What stands out with a credit card.
Yes,
Because with the banks, most banks provide provisional credit if you have any fraudulent activity, so you're not inconvenienced if you are, say, traveling away. Or you are doing something and you have some fraudulent activity happening on your card. You could contact the numbers and they can expedite a new card to you and provide you with provisional credit while
Yeah.
that investigation is going on. So the debit card, that's your money. They'll take their own slow time doing investigation.
Yeah.
Inconvenience or whatever thing they have to.
plus we get charged, or we charge
Right.
people
Yeah, for
for
the
the
investigation.
for the investigation that takes
Yeah.
7 days.
20 days.
So, now with the credit card, if you're fortunate enough to have a limit that is fairly large, it would be good to have, a credit card. If you're not fortunate to be able to have large limits, I would say get 2. And then when you travel, you use one for your car and hotel, and then the other one you use for your shopping. Because when you do your car and your hotel, they freeze a certain amount of the money on the credit card. So you wouldn't want to have any problems when you're shopping abroad. Now those people who have these $50,000 limits and these $100,000 limits, or these unlimited cards, like the American Express ones used to be, that's not a problem. Okay, but when you're dealing with 3,000 limit, or 5,000 limit, 10,000 limit, that's when you probably need to have more than one credit card. Okay,
And then the credit card also come with, reward.
come with rewards. Yes, okay. So if you want to put that in as extra note, that most credit cards have reward points that are redeemable. You can put that in. Okay. All right. Any questions or any comments that someone may want to add concerning credit card usage? No? Okay. The due date and the statement date. The date the statement drops. So if your statement drops today on the 22nd of the month, but the payment due date is like the 28th, you would want that earlier date, you would want to pay before that date, if you're paying in full.
The thing, and you brought up BPC, it explains why, even though my family line is payment before, and I'm thinking that I'm paying on my duty, I'm thinking I shouldn't be getting any interest fee or any late fee out of my account. So now it explains that.
Well, with BTC, they will charge. I think their late fees come if you don't pay it by the 7th day. I think they start charging the 7th day or after the 7th day, that after the due date. Okay, so then they'll charge. So if your payment is due the 28th and you don't pay it until, say, the 7th of the next month. Okay, see how I found that out was I had 4 accounts on BDC. Okay, well, 3, one of them was my parents. So My parents' bill was due on the 21st. Okay, my two cell phones, me and my wife's cell phone, were due on the 28th. Okay, the landline wasn't due until the 7th of the month, right? So what I in times past, before the last 2 years, I don't know, this something like seemed like it happened since COVID, right? And they started charging these late fees 7 days after. So I used to wait until the 7th or thereabouts, or just before the 7th, because you're getting paid then in a month. So I say, well, I'll just pay all 4 of them one time. Okay. So now what I'm having to do now is on the 21st, when the parents' landline is due, I'm now having to pay for the ones that are not due until the 28th, the 2 cell phones and my personal landline that's not due until the 7th of the next month. I'm finding I'm having to pay it on the 7th. I mean on the 21st, when my parents' landline is due. You see, to avoid, whereas before I used to do it. Okay, so I was trying to keep my money
Right.
as long as I could.
Right.
But you see, you ain't paying me no interest on my money, so it didn't make no sense me keeping it anyhow. So I might as well pay it on the 21st, because you ain't giving me the interest on my on that money.
They
Okay,
charge me a $5 late fee.
and 50 cents VAT.
Yes.
Yes.
And I'm thinking that like my due date, I'm thinking I'm not going to charge anything. People, she's saying if it's not paid on a certain date, even though my due date, like how you said, even though I have a due date, you have to pay it before your statement, you have to pay it on your statement date because you can charge that actual fee. I'm thinking,
Well,
even though it's.
Once you pay before the on the due date or before. Now if you have a previous balance, then you be charged that. When I get my state and this a little off, but it's again, this is one of those things that helps us in our personal life in terms of managing finances, because you have customers coming in, and you're gonna also the customer's BTC bill may be the only amount of credit history that you could go by. So it's good to be able to understand it. So if you see them with late payments, they may think that they're paying on time, but then you can help them understand and help you to when you go to your boss and say, well, if you look, they've been paying regularly on time. It's just that it wasn't explained to them, right? And so they really been paying on time. They really have a good credit history, right? So I would go out of my receipt, okay? The receipt will show, now if I pay it in full, it'll say paid in full, okay? If there's a balance outstanding, it'll tell me what my balance outstanding is, okay? So my receipt telling me this amount I paid, and then the other column is showing me amount outstanding, right? So now I get my bill by email, okay, from BTC. That give me a different amount owing, right? I go in to the people and I ask the young lady, what is the current outstanding amount? I get a third different figure. Okay. It's actually that happened to me. That was Friday. Yes, Friday. I was just so frustrated, right? I just paid everything in advance. Okay. I say this is what my average is. Well, the two landlines, my parents and my personal landline, those amounts don't change. The cell phones, they fluctuate, right? But I look to see what the average amounts are that the wife uses and I use. And so I say, okay, well, $30 should cover this, and $29 should cover that, or $30, whatever it is, or 25, right? So I just say them, I just pay in advance. Okay, because because I'm getting straight, if my receipt is saying this is not what I owe, that's what I expect to pay the next time. Okay, so I'm saying next month, I already add up what I'm gonna pay in terms of me doing my budget. Okay, and doing my budget against my actuals. Okay, but I find, and then like I said, then you get these emails, and then they have a different fee.
And
Right.
when you go in, they can't really explain it because when you go.
Yes.
So, if that person telling me it's still, I said, but if I'm paying every month, but I'm thinking.
And even-
on time,
Yes, and even the bill is convoluted because it's a current portion,
Right,
right? And then balance outstanding. And I'm saying, okay. See, what they need, see, before they used to show you the date when you made your last payment. They just only show the last payment amount, but they don't show the last payment date and amount. Before they used to show that. And so, you know what I'm saying? Well, this is in 26.98. Was my last payment, but I paid 27.92. Right? So why isn't that showing? And the statement, you know, I just paid my bill on the 18th. Statement drop on the 22nd. Okay? Why isn't that bill paid on the intake on the 18th showing up? So I said, you know, hold on. I'm tired of these extra 550. I need keep going in and then they reversing them and then having to follow up with them.
Starts back over again.
And that you didn't reverse it, right? Because it takes away from your time that you could spend doing something else more productive. Okay, and then especially if you have a 9 to 5 job, they close when you off. Okay, and then you really don't want to spend your Saturday if you're off on Saturday in BTC and BEC trying to sort out bills, right? So, you know, so I just bit the bullet and I said I get paid in advance and then I can just see how it see how it goes. Because it just doesn't make sense. Yeah. And like me, you know, that's four accounts, that's $22. You see? So 550 for 4 accounts, that's $22. My parents have had their phone. That phone has been in my parents' house for over 60 years. One of the first phones when these have 4 digits or whatever it is, right? And so their monthly fee is only $15 because that's just, and it's a rotary phone, okay, and that rotary phone is still there, right? And it still works, right? And so like when I use it, sometimes it says, for sales, press 1, right? So I have to push my finger in 1 and dial it down, and it worked. Or press 2, you know, for English, press 3, and, you know, so it works if you do the dial, right? It still works. I mean, they have a cordless connected as well, right? But I just love messing with the rotary phone. You know what I'm saying? And it's a good weapon as well because it's very heavy, right? So if somebody, you know, you could count them out, right? But like I said, it's only $15. So, you know, but then you now being charged $550 on that. Okay, that's more than 1/3 of the bill. You know what I'm saying? So, and over the course of a year, that's $70-some or $72. If that's happening every month. 12 months times 550.
Things out there starting to pay attention before this used to make the payment, then I realized it's fluctuating. Hold on, I'm like, but if I have a standing amount that I should be paying, why is it increasing over a period of time? Until I questioned it. And she was like, even though you're paying, like how you said, even though I'm paying my month, I'm thinking, okay, another month, I'm paying almost goes every month. But it's a difference with that slight date change. I'm like,
Yeah.
I mean,
So that payment due date, pay before for your telephone bill, pay before the.
I ain't even know the stuff in the cable now since I had that experience.
Oh, well,
Now I know now.
yeah, well, I
I
cable to me, I just continued cable over a year ago. So, to me, just especially now, which you could do Netflix and whatever it is. So, okay. Okay, so business loans. You have installment payments. They are clear payment terms. Okay, so unlike your overdraft, your revolving line of credit, your credit card, where there's, you know, minimum payments or it fluctuates or your income clears whatever the amount is. With a loan payment, a business loan and a consumer loan or term loan, there are specific payment amounts every pay period. So usually it's a monthly basis. Some loans are paid quarterly, some semi-annually. Normally you'll find those ones that are paid quarterly or semi-annually are mainly like government loans, where they make payments to their creditors on a quarterly basis or semi-annually. Okay, but generally speaking, on a monthly basis, business loans, term loans, consumer loans are paid on a monthly basis. Okay, there's normally a fixed interest rate, and we can talk a little bit more later about fixed interest rates. We covered it a little bit earlier, I think. But fixed interest rates, when we're talking about the interest rates from central bank. Okay, but we find that the interest rates are tied to prime. Okay, so if prime goes up, you find the interest rate will go up correspondingly. If prime goes down, you find the interest rate go down correspondingly. Normally, it's like a month or so lag, unless it's specified in the contract. It may not take place until another 2 or 3 months, or however it is cycled. So the central bank may change the prime rate or the discount rate at like we saw happen in, I think it was 2017 or thereabouts, where but it wasn't until the following month, the beginning of the new year, where the banks adjusted theirs when the rate went down. Okay, so whereas in America, because it's much more fluid, you have interest rates, they change every minute, right? So if I tie in a rate of say 5 7/8, right? The next hour, that could be 7 3/4. You see, so it fluctuates. And that's because they have a much more fluid market. Okay, so their stock market is much more fluid. So you'll see their stock prices changing on a daily basis and throughout the day, as opposed to ours, that there's hardly any movement. Of the movement, it'll be like not for another week that you may find, say, like common bank shares may go up or whatever it is. Okay, so ours is not as fluid because it's not as developed, it's not as large. Okay, and so the interest rates on loans in America is tied to investment rates. Okay, so they kind of mirror. Okay, and we have a similar thing here in the Bahamas, but we'll look at that later in one of the chapters to come. Right, but generally speaking, our loans have what they call a fixed interest rate. Okay, mortgages. So you have the commercial mortgages or business mortgages, and you have your personal mortgages for individual. So the mortgages normally have a longer repayment term than your consumer loans, your regular consumer loans or business loans. The interest rate is lower. Why is the interest rate lower on mortgages than on consumer loans or term loans? Longer term, security, yes. Yeah, collateral, yes. So those are two main reasons. Longer term and your collateral security offered. Okay, and then the equity, the collateral accumulates equity over time. What does that mean, that it accumulates equity over time? You want to take a stab at that? The value of what increases? Yes, okay. And why does that increase over time? Some reasons. Okay, and how do you add value to it? Very good. Go ahead.
understand what's going on there. You should have put the value.
the collateral could get equity over time.
Yeah.
By you building on it, oh, it is a vacant property. If it's a developed property, you adding on to it. Okay,
I mean, that's not all it is, but if you have a particular situation when there's nothing wrong with that, then you let me, actual market value for there, we appreciate, that means. The equity and.
Okay.
The collateral and.
okay, and that's how it's not supposed to work. Okay, we're talking about how, if it were, if all things being equal, what happens if, okay, so you'll find, that, even if things work the way they ought to work, you find that there's depreciation. But because of market pressures, you could find that there's also appreciation. So for example, you may have bought a property, say 30 years ago, let's say in Eastwood for $20,000. Okay, that property is now worth probably worth $100,000 or more. Okay, so the land value appreciated from 20 over the last, say, 10, 20 years. Well, it'll be more than 20 or 30 years, given the prices, right? So let's say for 20 years. So the land prices have increased, appreciated from, say, 20 or 25,000 to now about 100 to 120,000. Okay, but if there's a building on it, the building may have depreciated. Okay, but if the people are maintaining that building, okay, the depreciation will be on a slower rate. Okay, so overall, you can still end up with that property being valued now more than it was back then, even though the building has depreciated. And that's because land values have actually appreciated. Also, when you look at the replacement cost of that building, 20, 30 years ago, right, you could have built, say, for about $25 a square foot, $50 a square foot, right? Building costs now about $125 or more a square foot. Okay, so the pressure from the replacement value aspect, right? If you now look at that building, you now, and you want to do appreciation, even if that building was just left to deteriorate. Okay, so initially that may have been built to say, let's use $75, the highest side of 20 or so years ago. So $75 a square foot, right? Now 125, which is now $50 more, right? Or even 150, which is $75 more, double the rate. Okay, and then you do the depreciation on that, you'll find that it still would be valued more than it was back then. And then now you add the land that pushes it up.
Right. So I get it, because I thought you responded to the wrong question now, so.
No, but it's a good perspective that you brought, and a good question that you brought in.
No,
About depreciation, yes.
I didn't sort of really say what it was and increase the value, right?
Yes.
I mean, I was just reading and say, well, the benefit for the consumer in this case would be the person or the business would be the accumulated equity. So I was thinking more along the lines of, like, let's say the collateral value of $100,000, right? Of course, if they borrow 80 against it, I mean, they only have $20,000 value of equity in it, but as time progresses and they pay on the principal, they gain more equity in it, right?
Okay, you now went to you now hit the other aspect of it, which is the main point that I wanted y'all to get. Okay, is that as you start eating down the principal
you gain
of that loan, you gain equity. So if I knock off 20,000 of my mortgage, I have now put $20,000 equity in my asset side.
Right.
Okay, so I've taken $20,000 principal from my liability. So I've taken that from my liability. That's now an asset. Okay, and so you see why I say I like to us to talk about these things and work through them, right? To be able to connect the dots, right? Because the answer I really wanted, and it was a great answer on this side too, about because you do accumulate equity over time because of adding on to it. But the real answer I wanted, and I didn't want to give it to you, was as you said, okay. And so we may have thought that we were going in the wrong direction, talking about what happens if something goes wrong, right? And you made your point, which is an excellent point. Okay, any questions on those before we look at the other few ones? Okay, so those are the ones available to business entities as well as to individuals, right? The overdraft and the revolving line of credit, the credit card, term loans. For the business side, we normally call them business loans, or we call them consumer loans on the individual side, and then commercial mortgages as opposed to personal mortgages. Okay, and personal mortgages can be investment mortgages as well. Okay, like duplexes, condos, that type of thing, right? Triplexes. Okay. Oh, it's not here for some reason. Okay, so letter of credit, check guarantee. Well, I'm gonna look at those in more detail. But let me just on the bottom of your page 15, the letter of credit on the business side, you see that it's not available to an individual because it's only available to businesses, and that is whether it's a corporation or a partnership or a sole proprietor. So the letter of credit, it facilitates international trade, mainly imports. It provides collateral for the beneficiary in case of standbys. It provides safety. It guarantees payment for exporters and is regulated by the ICC publication 500. And there's a note to the bottom. So let's look at them quickly. There's a yeah, we look at the letter of credit in a little bit more detail, because this the letter of credit is there's actually a diagram, a couple diagrams in module 2, and I'll bring that forward either today or later on in either today or Thursday in this course, right? In module 1. So so it facilitates international trade and imports. And remember, we said it is set up. The last class, the question was asked. You go to your bank, and you set up a letter of credit, and it guarantees payment to the person who's sending you the goods, usually from abroad. Okay, it guarantees that they'll get paid.
So just to be clear, so it's not the bank necessarily providing payment, it's just that in the event something goes awry, that the person.
But it goes through it goes through the bank, because you would then send a wire transfer. The money is wire transferred to the exporter, to the provider of goods. Okay, so in a little bit we'll probably look try to see where I brought that brought in the actual a little simple diagram. Okay, it'll become clear as we go on. So what happens is you have the importer, our local businessman. You have the exporter who has the goods. They want to do trade between themselves. The exporter, they want to make sure that they get their money, right? So the importer goes to their bank, sets up a letter of credit, which lets these people know, oh yeah, you could begin sending these, you could send the goods because you're guaranteed by their bank that your bank is gonna get the money for your account. Okay,
So the bank paying them, the intent is still for the importer to make the payment.
it's a payment guarantee. So they can begin sending the goods, right? even though the payment may be slightly delayed.
Okay, okay.
Okay, so because sometimes it takes what, like when people import cars, it takes 2 or 3 months. Sometimes a little longer for the car to get in. Okay, and because we are as individuals, normally we pay for ours right up front. But on a business, normally they normally give a business 30 days, 60 days, 90 days.
But the bank.
To pay.
Credit percent time.
Yeah, so if I don't send the money direct or wire transfer, right? Then it works 2 ways. If I don't send the money from on my own, the bank will then debit my account, and send it to the exporter. Because the payment is guaranteed. So let's say payment is due in 30 days, and I don't send the payment in 30 days, right? Then the bank will debit my account and send it to the exporter's
So when
bank.
something happened with like the 30 days and I don't have the money for the payment of the bill, really start coming.
That's where the letter of credit comes in, because normally it is secured by cash.
Okay.
Okay.
See,
It's held.
you want to say that? Okay.
Yeah, it's held. It's
Yeah, start with that. All right.
yeah. Well, sometimes I want you to ask the questions.
All right. Okay.
Okay, sometimes I want you to ask the questions, because then I know that you're connecting the dots. Okay. Because I mean, I can spend the whole evening just telling you the stuff. Okay, but there are times when I want to engage. And particularly like in here, y'all have these inquiring minds and y'all ask these questions. So I love this kind of class. This type of student. Y'all are good students. So okay, so you're inquisitive, and that's excellent, right? So it facilitates so for example, when you talk about the check guarantee is also secured by cash. Okay, so it provides collateral for the beneficiary in case of standbys. Is safety. Again, you don't have to travel, say, with large wads of cash. If so you either do voluntarily, you send the wire transfer, or if the payment day comes and you have not sent it, the bank will automatically debit it. Debit the holding account, the collateral account, and send the money. Okay. And in that way, it guarantees payments for exporters. Now, the last point, regulated by the ICC publication, you see a note to the bottom there. The International Chamber of Commerce International Standards relating to format. Okay. The reason for that is because you also have, they want to have, so whether in the Bahamas or Hong Kong or the UK, or Italy for that matter, right? You'll find that letters of credit, wire transfers, and some of those forms that are used internationally, they are pretty much set up the same way. So even if you can't speak the language, along this section is where this is the sender's information, this is sender's bank information, this is the recipient's information, this is recipient bank's information. Okay, so there's the international standard that set up how these things are to be. So it's almost it's almost as though I could take the form in Cantonese and overlay, put on top of that the English, and they should line up. Okay, that's one of the reasons. That's one of the reasons for it. Okay, so it's a standardization. Okay. All right, now let's move on to the check guarantee. The bank guarantees payment of checks to a major supplier. The most common are customs and treasury and the public treasury. And we're gonna look at those in a little bit more detail, going on. But what I want to do is just quickly, look at the credit, review the credit products. Okay, so for, individuals, their overdrafts, credit cards, consumer loans, mortgages, businesses, they also have overdrafts, credit cards, business loans, mortgages, for commercial purposes or business purposes. And there's some, other products that I said, and we're gonna. The cable's shaking, okay. We're gonna look at those, and explain some of these other business ones, like the letter of credit, check guarantee, and some of the customs bonds and those kind of things. Okay, so customs bond is the first one. Bottom of page 17, other corporate products. Customs bond guarantees the payment of import duty up to a specified amount. So again, these ones that we've been looking at, the customs bond, the customs check writing bond, on the next page, the bid bond and the performance bond. All of these are usually backed by cash. Sometimes they may be backed by real estate, but usually they're backed by cash. Okay. Sometimes performance bonds are, like I said, in particular, maybe backed by real estate. So we'll talk through each one of these. So the customs bond, what is the purpose of the customs bond? As it says here, it guarantees the payment of import duty up to a specified amount. So what basically happens is, I'm a business owner, okay, and I'm importing stuff. So rather than me sending my courier there or my person there with a blank check with my signature on it saying to fill out the amount for the customs, customs will have, and this is an arrangement where customs say, up to $100,000, you would be able to pay up to $100,000 at any given time. Okay, so if I have some goods come in this month, and let's say they would, I have $100,000 customs bond, but my customs duty comes up to $50,000. So customs will make notation, however they do it, that okay, out of this $100,000, we use it 50,000. Yes, 50,000 left. So I come in again, there's $30,000 worth. So now customs saying, okay, you use up 80, you only got 20. Okay, so I can do that up to $100,000, and customs will be guaranteed without me having to do a payment or sign a check or whatever. They know at the end of the day, customs will be paid that $100,000. Now, when I pay that starts all over again. Okay, so customs then, when it's paid, customs will mark on their ledger that $100,000 was paid. So now you have another $100,000, and it's almost like a revolving credit as well. Okay, so that's that's for the payment of customs duty, the stuff that I import as a business. Okay, any questions on that? That's a little clearer than what? Was clear as lemonade. Businesses, yes.
I mean, so
Okay.
is that a credit facility though?
Yes, it's a credit facility. Because we charge, the banks, we charge a fee for setting up these facilities. Okay, so because it's backed either by, usually by cash, sometimes by real estate, the bank is holding that. And that's a guaranteed payment. So customs know at the end of the day, we get now money. Okay, and it usually is cash. Right? So again, like the letter of credit, if I don't pay the money direct to them, customs comes to the bank. There's an order saying pay $35,000. he's supposed to pay that by the end of this month. He ain't pay it. So then the bank will debit the account 35,000 and remit it. Now, if you have it on your account and you just didn't pay, right? The bank may not liquidate the collateral. They may just say, listen, Mr. Nordich, what's happening here? Right? Oh Lord, I forget it. Okay, so do you want me to liquidate it from the fixed deposit? Or should I take it from your checking account?
If they liquidate it,
You think?
because that means the bond will be void after that, but we negotiate a new contract, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so what you'll find happening then is, it depends on your agreement with, well, you're correct, because it's executed by Customs Department as well as, so it's not unilateral. Okay, so both parties will have to agree to lesser amount. So you'd have to renegotiate, say, now, if I've used 35,000, I now left with 65,000, so my bond will, unless I get more money in, and then I bring it back up. You see? Yeah. Yeah. Or, you reach some temporary agreement with customs, saying, hey, man, instead of us canceling, that, and the bank will give some sort of guarantee that, okay, you can now go to 65,000, because he's gonna bring in, or she's gonna bring in, or they're gonna bring in the extra money, and then we'll get it back up to. Okay, so there may be some extenuating circumstances with that is happening, or maybe allowed. But again, it depends on what is signed in that contract. But generally speaking, the contract with that, and you have to negotiate a new contract, a new customs bond. Okay,
What customs bond over here, like, remember.
customs bond is a business facility that is reviewed annually. Yes. Yeah, and that's how they make the money,
Right.
because they have to charge you a new fee. You see? All right. Now, customs check writing facilities. This once checks are done away. Once checks are done away with in the Bahamas, we won't be using customs check writing guarantees or bonds anymore. It'll basically just be the customs bond. Okay, but for now, we still have customs check writing. In this instance, this guarantees that I can write a check up to a certain amount, and you don't have to worry about that bouncing. I don't know if some of you may remember, we saw what they call check card. The check card is a guarantee the payment and whatnot. Well, this is stronger than check card because it's supported by cash. Okay, so again, you may do a custom check writing facility. You may not necessarily want to say I want to wire. You may still want to use for your own internal accounting for whatever reasons, right? You may find it more effective for you, right? To do checks for each one, so that you have your little stub there, showing that I paid $25,000 to customs for this or whatever it is, right? So again, it acts on the same principle as the customs bond. The only thing is, when I go to them, I could write a check, and they will accept it. Okay, it won't have to be a manager's check. Okay, it could be from my regular checking account, my business checking account. Okay. Now a bid bond. Okay, the bid bond. Okay, I'm not sure if you're. Let me read through it, but it says bid bond at the top of page 18. Because I'm not sure if it was corrected. A bid bond is issued as part of a bidding process by the surety, which is usually a financial institution, to the project owner to guarantee that the winning bidder can or will undertake the contract under the terms at which they bid. The cash deposit is subject to, does your thing have forfeiture there or forfeiture? Forfeiture? Okay, that should be FORFEITURE, forfeiture. It seems as though autocorrect was even engaged back in 2017. So instead of forfeiture, it should be forfeiture. FORFEITURE, one word, forfeiture. If the winning bidder contractor fails to either execute the contract or provide the required performance or payment bonds. Okay, so it says that the bid bond assures and guarantees that should a bidder, usually construction jobs, be successful, that the bidder will execute the contracts and provide the required security bonds. So what, couple things in this. One is a bid bond. Okay, so it means there's a bidding process. So during the bidding process, I'm bidding for a job. So I'm required to submit a bond to guarantee that I have the money, that if I'm given this job, right, I'm being considered, and if I am selected, I have the resources to complete this job. Okay, so you'll find that, for example, the government, when government sends out stuff for contracting, okay, they'll say, you know, bids are invited for the construction of the addition to PMH, right? So all the contractors who are submitting bids must also execute a bid bond, which is usually supported by cash. Again, most of these are cash. Okay, there's an instance when real estate may be substituted, and I'll get to that after I explain this. Right. So, sorry,
They need to make sure
of that.
that they're persons that are bidding have this guarantee.
Yes, and so there's a standardized form that you'll get from the government, which you would have completed. There's a section of it to be completed by the bank, and then the government does the approval, whatnot, and then it's held. It is held by as a security document by the financial
I
institution.
was worried about this, because they'll take long to do.
Well,
No one start a project and all the money.
well, it's important because sometimes on the other side, on the flip side, you have some of these contractors who may renege, right? Or some may go wrong. So for example, the Doris Johnson school, right? I was at a financial institution where the original contractor had a bid bond, right? And he was fired. But they were trying to get the bond released. They said, well, we finished, blah, blah, blah. And I think it was like $1 million or whatever it is, right? And so we said, no, we can't release it. We have to get permission from Inland Revenue, right? The Treasury Department at the time. Inland Revenue has been more recent development where more things are channeled. But this is one that we had to get it's actually from the Treasury, right? The approval from the Treasury. And the Treasury said, no, you cannot release that money because it was a shabby job and we had to get somebody else to complete it. They have to wait until that job is completed and the retention period is completed by that person, because you know, and when the new contractor took on the job, they found that they had to take up all the plumbing, right? Because some of the fellows weren't getting paid by the contractor, so they poured concrete down in some of the plumbing pipes. So he was having backup in the classrooms. Okay, so
Take some money then.
so right. Well, I left that institution before the job was completed. So I don't know how that was resolved, what the outcome was. But I was the officer who actually called Treasury Department. Treasury Department told me no, and so that contract I had to convey to him and his accountant, who was actually a family member, right? Because he was getting on in age, And so this family member was kind of like taking over and handling the finances for him. And so I had to, I had to say, well, first I had to confirm that that family member was authorized to get information and whatnot. So while that was one of his children, okay, that don't mean that he or she
Oh, yeah.
was entitled, okay? And while I had a working knowledge that this child was the one taking over the daddy business, having a head knowledge and having it in court, the court will say, did you went by what you taught in your head? What proof did you have? Right? What documented proof? You see? And so he could have come, he could have turned around and say that she was unauthorized. And then sue the bank for $1 million, so he get his $1 million anyhow. Right? So he get $1 million from us. Plus, when that job finish, and they take out 250,000 or 500,000, he got another half a million anyhow. So he ended up ahead. You see? So you had to not just deal with how things ought to go process wise. That is where the buying secrecy aspect confidentiality came in. You see, the KYC aspect of it, right? So you would then in the bidding process, all of them would submit these bid bonds, and you would say that's expensive. Yeah, that's the cost of doing business, right? Because a fee has to be paid. So if the bank charges you 1 or 2% on $1 million, the bank making a good little change.
So who negotiates
Okay.
the minimum requirements for a project, right? Because what I may charge may be, I guess, 5-10% less than what you may charge. You get them think about who may do a decent job. Who sets the standard?
Well, that's why the government asks for bidders. And then they make the decision. The government would then make the decision who gets the contract. Okay, now because I may be, a card carrying member, I may end up getting it anyhow,
Yeah.
right? And my own may be, you see, so because I wear red or I wear yellow, depending on who in power at the time,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, I mine is $1 million more, right, than everybody. The contract only calls for 1 million. I say 2 million, right? Everybody else around that 1 million, right? I still get the contract because the transparency isn't there. Okay. Now, when it comes out, would be this, was when those contractors start saying, "Listen, I got to do that job for 1.2 million," because then it's known that Mr. Yellow should get
Yeah, man, you charge them 2.5.
2 million, right? So then they know, right, that I get, I charge much more than them. So how is it? And then that would be it may be argued, yes, but my work is more professional. I have a proven track record. I have not had any problems. I did my jobs from beginning to end. They didn't have to follow up with me. When the fellas come to the inspectors come to they didn't have to have it redone and whatever it is. Because like the Bahamas Financial Center, I spoke with the inspector at the Ministry of Works. He said, I think they rejected, was it 11 times? The contract, the concrete, the consistency of concrete that they wanted to pour for those parking lots. He said it was not the correct consistency, right? And if they had allowed it, it probably would have been deteriorating now. So he said it was like, it was a large number, right? I'm sure it was like in the double digits. If not, I think the minimum would have been like 7 or 8. Okay, but I know it was in a high amount of time. He said he rejected it, and they was trying to pay him off, and he refused. Right? He said my integrity is much more important than me. And they told him, man, you could get 2 or 3 times your annual salary with this one job. So if at that time he was making, when I was built, he probably was making about $35,000-$40,000 a year in the Ministry of Works. He's prepared to pay him probably about $100,000, right? So he could get almost 2-3 years salary. If he had, plus at that time, he had a son getting, or daughter going off to, getting ready to go off to college. So the temptation is there. Some people take the bait, some people don't. Integrity matters to a lot of people in this country. You'd be surprised. You may think, because we hear the stories, there are more people with integrity in this country than people who are not, right? And so when you see people now not working whatever it is, they decided that they would end up losing it wrong than take an under the table thing, right? So it speaks volumes.
When I tell you that the contract, like on this contract, they go down, that they, this big one, the bank still gets their percentage or whatever it is.
Yeah, the bank the bank takes its fee up front. Okay, so when we as a financial institution approve it, right, whether the fee is 1% or 2% or whatever it is, we get it up that up front. So we get $100,000 or $200,000, whatever it is, right up front. Right, or 10,000 or 20,000, whatever it is.
Like, even though he took a loss, but not.
Behind the bank or
Oh.
behind the bank.
Well, he should have performed. No, I shouldn't say 100,000. It's 10,000 or 20,000, right? But banks also have a maximum fee that they can charge, right? They would normally put a maximum fee, so they may say, a maximum. So even if it's like it's 2%, so rather than charging the client 20,000, because the maximum fee that they would charge a client is 10,000. Even though 2% of that would be 20,000, they're still only charge a client 10,000. So for some facilities, there's a ceiling. Okay. So if, like, for example, I had a construction company and I won the bid, okay, that's where the performance bond comes in. Okay, so I gotta now do a performance bond. Okay, so and that performance bond will be for the amount, for the scope of the work. For the scope of the of what the contract is. So if the contract is for 2.5 million, the government would want 2.5 million minimum. Okay, they may ask for a little bit more in case they got to deal with you, whatever it is. So they may ask for the extra $100,000. So instead of putting up a 2.5, they may put up a 2.6.
So the performance one is in the sense that bad work gets done. I mean,
But yes, like in the case with Doris, the Doris Johnson School.
Like a cash contingency of all.
Sorry.
The cash contingency of the.
Yeah, so that the government can remedy the work if so what they'll do is they'll get a new contractor to complete it, right? What they'll do is they'll determine the amount of what it'll take to complete, right? And if it is obvious, let's say there was some cracking, some structural stuff that you saw, so you assess what it means, what it take to bring that down and rebuild it. Okay, now with the plumbing, that was unforeseen. That happened after the contract was given, because when the people finished the school and they started flushing the toilets, Sharon was running out of the bathroom because the toilets was backing up. Okay, so that is something that so that is why the government said they're gonna wait until not is completed, but the retention of the completion, because normally there's a retention period anyhow. If you were to come, if a contractor, right? So whether that's 3 months or 6 months, whatever the retention period is.
I'm gonna make sure I fully clear on the difference on how these people are.
Mhm.
So midpoint is essentially the contractor's way of securing that they have sufficient funds to
The job,
to take the job on,
yes,
and it's secured by a cash with the bank.
yes,
Performance bond is in the instance that there's some unforeseen expenses or unforeseen circumstances, people over budget for whatever reason may be, we have sufficient cash on the side to take care of that unforeseen. expense.
yes.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you're quite right. So the bid bond is the government want to see that you have the money to carry out the carry what you bidding for. And then the performance is, if you don't do what you say, we holding this money.
But what if it's something outside of my power, something, I mean, that's what the bonus is on, it's for their cause.
So what would it be outside of your,
I guess some sort of severe weather event, national hospital construction stuff, I mean, just something that's outside of my power.
so then that would be a negotiation between you and the government.
We probably have like.
Right.
All this
So-
something like that.
Well, there should be all this, well, like the Bamsey thing,
Yeah,
when we had the fire, right? But if something else, some uninsured risk, you know, took place, right? Let's say, I had a dispute. Well, let's say relations I as a contractor. That the property, somebody came up claiming that they actually own the property and not the government, or which the school is being built. And they take their tractor, they bulldoze part of the building, okay? So that the contractor would have to redo that work, so that would be an added cost that the government would have to bear. Not the contractor,
Yeah, they wouldn't take my performance.
no, because that has nothing to do with the contractor. Okay, because see, that's the government to do. Because the government claim the land is theirs, and some crazy person claim it's theirs, and ram their tractor into it. Right, so if that person can't pay, well, that's on the government.
So this
Okay.
performance bond is all outside of, by the bank,
The money is held by the bank, yes.
but then two separate. And then you two separate. Sorry, that doesn't matter.
They can use two separate institutions if they have the required money in two separate institutions, yeah. Okay, so, you know, bank A will probably hold, let's say if it's a 2.5, bank A may have 1.5, and B may have 1 million.
So the person or company that let's say is going within the bid for this, for the majesty or the correctional center, because that's 90 million. They have to have what kind of bid bond, performance bond on hold?
That's a different conversation.
Okay.
When you see that they're saying that that's being reduced, right?
Like 50, everything.
They're saying it's being reduced. Okay,
90.
I'm a little close to that situation, so
They need to.
I
Wow.
You bid it?
no, I
Okay. Okay.
but I for many reasons I wouldn't want to touch that one. So
Okay.
But it's interesting because only the larger contractors with the cash reserves and up the chance of even
Yeah.
ongoing.
and so that is why you'll have like the Cavalier Construction and whatever. A lot of them with Moscow's and those getting most of the bids.
Take on the risk.
Yeah, and they have proven track records, right? Because like this big thing, the thing that boggled me is you have a group or company that deals with IT and wiring. My first thing is, what the hell do you know about construction? Anyway, okay,
Makes sense when that's.
yeah,
Makes sense.
you know, what other large projects? Other than their own, business that-
The company.
yeah, the company,
Oh, okay.
you know, like I say, there's, yeah, 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 I could cause a family feud. My wife is related, so, so I have to be careful. Okay. But when I heard it, the first thing that came to my mind was, oh, sure, okay, boy, I would like to be their accountant, because boy, I could make some good money in this, you know. But anyway. So, yeah, yeah, yeah. It's not an ethics class, this. Yeah, yeah. Too close to that one.
So, I mean, just to add on to this, right, so, I mean, we speaking more about more private companies, what about project, took by the government, so it's the same process, right?
No, if the government building their, if Ministry of Works building their own thing, is.
There's no risk, it's the government, they can do whatever, they
Yeah.
can do whatever,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
That's unfair, but that's fair.
Yeah, so, but you usually you find the government will contract it out, you know, any major jobs, they won't let the Ministry of Works. Deal with it. Okay. So, and this is not just, this could also be like road paving, road building. You know, like some of those projects are going into Farming Islands now and stuff like that. You know, airports and that sort of stuff. In America, you find that contractors, particularly certain size projects. So let's say I build in a $3 million, $10 million home, right? I would send out bids, right? And I would require that those people have submit bid bonds. You see, so you, so in America, is not just here in the Bahamas. It's more government requesting it, but in America and elsewhere, because of the scope, right? People doing normal contracting jobs, or large IT development jobs, right? So I need someone to build a platform for me that's going to be $2.5 million, and you bidding on this project, right? I would ask you to supply a bid bond. You see, so it's a little bit broader in America.
I mean, it's about a definition on that, so I was thinking it was some of them. The bid bond and performance bond, these are ongoing contracts, or these are negotiated per job.
These are per bid.
So as a job come up, I say, oh, that's the job I want.
I'm a bid on that, yes.
Go to the bank and do the paperwork,
Yes,
then we'll put it for the job.
yes.
But all right.
And unless you have sufficient money, right, to be able to bid on multiple jobs.
That's what it's
Right,
gonna
okay.
have to-
So if you only have $2 million, you can't go bid on $10 million worth of. Okay, you have to wait and see if you're successful or not.
I was saying, 'cause what about?
You see?
That I'm a big company, right? And I say, okay, sometimes I was gonna be the first to get the job that I want out. 10 million, they're sitting, always in a sitting bond. So some soon the job come out. So we know our budget, so we talk on that.
Yeah, well, you may have 10 million set aside in a fund somewhere.
But it won't be for a bond. it's a bond.
No,
It's
no,
a
you
contract.
right. So
Ah.
so then the bond would then capture whatever amount is. Okay, so you may have, like, say, a term deposit for 10 million. And you have, say, 5 jobs that you're bidding on at $2 million each. Right? So then you could do that. But if you only have 2 million,
Yeah.
you can't, okay, because you have to wait to see. And so that's why sometimes some of the unsuccessful bidders, if the government takes too long to tell the bank it's okay now to release from the bid, right? Because they don't want to bid on another job, but they can't bid because
Because that money, but they lose
their money
that
tied up.
then.
Sorry,
But they lose that 10 grand, that 1% fee, therefore.
well, that's the cost of doing business. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, that's the cost of doing business.
Could you imagine the bigger contract, right? Like,
Yeah.
$90 million, you lose 1% of that.
But that's paying your salary. That's paying my salary
I know.
in the financial. So when you ask for your bonus, that having to pay your bonus.
Don't bet unless you're serious, and you
Yeah.
have to really try. If you want money.
Well,
Right,
Imagine that on a 90 minute, that's 9 grand losing that.
Yeah.
I know that it's
yeah, but like I said, in fairness, in fairness to us as financial institutions, we have a maximum amount that, so while the fee may be 2%, 2%. So 2% of a million would be 20,000, but we may say, well, but up not exceeding a maximum of 10,000. You see, so there is some consideration there anyhow. You see, so but it's the cost of doing business. It's just like someone go into the bank to set up a business for business proposal for loan coming to you. They have to have a business plan. Okay, so someone has to do the business plan. They have to have an accountant who do the flow chart to show how the projections for the business, whatever it is. So that accountant may charge them $1,000. The person who they may have to do some research and development. They may do it on their own, or they may ask somebody to do some research on the industry in which they want to get. That person may charge them $1,000, right? Then the actual business plan, the layout, the person doing that's another $1,000. So that's $3,000 for you to go to the bank to propose for business loan proposals, say for $25,000 to $50,000 or $150,000. Okay, if you were turned down, okay, that's 3,000. It's the cost of doing business. You see, it's like you and me. If we and it's happened before, where people want to get a mortgage, and they go to appraisal, get an appraisal. That's $500, and then the bank say, well, they're on our approved list, right? Okay. My advice to people is check with all the banks and see who on their approved list, and see who's common, and choose. Yes, choose among those who are common to all the banks. And if that just boils down to 3 out of the 50 or whatever it is, then you choose one of them 3. Right? Well, they have set prices as well. Right? They have a schedule of fees. Right? So I see it over and over. People when particularly when I was at Finco, people come and I said, but we can't accept this. Just they're not on our approved list. But I did all my business with this person, and blah blah blah. And or he tell me he does plenty work for Finco.
Yeah.
And and I'm looking at the list showing that this man was scratched off because of the crap he was doing. Right? Or you'll have people who only real estate people, but they're trying to do an appraisal on a construction job. Okay, 2 different fields. If I can only assess an existing building or vacant land, right, and I have no architectural experience, no building or construction experience, how could you be doing an appraisal? And there's this one man who's always doing it and always doing it and always doing it, and he was an elder in his church. Right? And
No, I didn't remember.
Sorry, one second. Sorry.
I have a question on the big bond, but people are not using it, and the performance bond, they have to match. the doc amount.
No, but when you say, you mean the bid bond and the performance bond itself match?
No, okay, let me rephrase, the bid bond, when a contractor, whoever is submitting a bid bond, it has to, be the exact amount of the project,
It should be or more.
or more, okay, so that's
Okay.
the percentage per se, it should be,
No, if you're bidding, you have to show, if you're bidding 500,000, you gotta show that you could afford 500,000.
okay,
If you bid $1 million, you have to show that you have $1 million.
okay,
Okay, now sometimes, the government will say, well, I want extra 5% or extra 10%, you gotta, so it may be, instead of being, $500,000, it may be, 550 or whatever, okay? For overages, just for leaving, okay? But you can't have, be bidding, for $500,000, I only got only got 350,000. Okay, so, okay, so it has to be equal or greater. Okay. Now, I indicate I got 5 minutes, so I gotta wrap up on this. Okay. I indicated that there may be some bonds, bid bonds, performance bonds, where cash may not be required, but or accepted. Well, cash is required and accepted, but real estate may also be held, right? Now, there are some cases where in the performance bond in particular, the government may hold or accept real estate. So let's say, for example, when Treasure Cove, I was involved in that project. And this is one that where it happened. So when Treasure Cove, which was a brand new project, well, it was developed by some Cubans. You know, Cubans, they're very, Cubans are very business savvy, and they like to hold on to their money if they could. Okay. They are like Greeks and Jews and Chinese. Okay. Very, very strict. They're hard to negotiate with. Okay. So but this family, the Capo family, purportedly had money. But they wanted to sink the money into the development and not have it held. Okay, because they were doing development in Bimini as well, and elsewhere in Florida and whatnot. So what they asked the government to do is to hold several lots equivalent to the and this performance bond was for the inclusion of utilities. So it's for the electric and the water and whatever it is. Okay, for the subdivision. Okay, so the government didn't hold cash. The government held several properties. So, and those properties were equivalent to or greater than the cost. So if they didn't put in the sewage system and the electrification and the paving the roads and that sort of stuff, the government would then sell those lots or have those lots sold, use the money, and then the government would have put the infrastructure in place. Okay, and those lots were the prime lots on the beachfront for the most part that the government had that held and were very valuable. Okay, so they couldn't advertise those for sale. Those only got sold after they had finished putting in the infrastructure. Then they were able to then sell those ones on the beachfront.
So is there a minimum loan evaluation for that performance bond? Let me ask you that one more time. In an instance, let's say the performance bond is $1 million, right? The other lots have to be valued at least $1 million, right?
Well, in this
Okay, take
instance,
it-
the government held that was worth almost 1.5 times.
Right, so I was thinking.
Okay, the reason for that is you're liquidating if in a for sale value.
Right.
Okay, so the government is saying, okay, if I gotta discount these by 25% or whatever it is, in order to get the money quickly, right? But I gotta hold more. So it was gonna take, like you say $1 million to put down the roads, to put in the underground cables or the sewer system or whatever it is. It was gonna cost $1 million. They were holding property that was worth 1.5 million.
That makes sense.
You see? And of course, knowing those Cubans, they ain't gonna want that property gone because they, so they're gonna do what they may stench and see what they can get away with. Okay, and they did stench. Okay, But, the government wasn't playing that game. You see? So, okay. So, yeah, that's 8:30. Yeah, okay, so, the letter of credit, documentary credit, it guarantees the supply usually in another country that goods shipped will be paid for in full up to the purchase order or amount. I'm gonna end by just doing a quick look at that little chart that I told you that is I borrowed from module 2. And then you see all are written agreements, usually with a standard format of form document, and usually supported by cash. Okay, so it's similar to that ICC thing for international. Even our local ones have a standard format. So again, you get that standard form from the government. It's for the bid bond has its own format. Performance bond has its own format. Okay, they're not interchangeable. Okay, bid bond has its own number from the government, form number, etc., etc. Okay, so this is how the letter of credit, document credit works diagrammatically. You have the importer and the exporter. They want to do trade between themselves. Okay, they each have a bank. So the importer goes into his or her bank, sets up a letter of credit to ensure that payment is made to the exporter's bank to make sure that the exporter gets paid. And that's how that works. Okay. What we'll do is you lost 15 minutes trying to get sorted out with a student who's supposed to come online, asked to come online last minute. But we were going to play something called the matching game, but we'll start next class by playing the matching game. Okay, so it's a very short game, and then we'll probably get another game in there when we do chapter 5 on the interview. Okay, in that game it'll be a team building, so we'll have teams of 2 or 3. So we have two to 3 teams of 2 or 3. Okay, depending on how many persons in class in time. Alrighty, so if you haven't read chapter 5, read chapter 5. To the end of chapter questions for chapter 4. Come prepared with any questions you have on Thursday. You'll also get your homeworks back, graded homeworks back on Thursday. We go over them. Okay, thank you very much. Have a good night.
Good night.